Dinner. Did I get that right? I did.
You did.
I'm standing up in the studio here because I just can't sit anymore. There we go. And I'm totally trapped here with wires and
I don't have that
stuff.
problem. I've got my feet up on the desk and my shoes off.
It's like Nick's on vacation.
Well.
And it's kind of a vacation for him because, he comes into the city, sits around in the studio, talks about, when are we going out for lunch? Well, Nick, it's not lunchtime. Oh, okay. Well, when are we going out for dinner? Anyway, I'm just teasing you, Nick. Nick's not that bad. Anyway.
There are some days he's worse.
In case you didn't know, you are listening to the Nick and Joe Show on ThinkRadio.ca. I am Joe, and he is Nick.
Yes, he is.
And here we are, part 4 for this week's episode. Time is flying. We had some really great discussions in the first 3 parts, Nick. And if we go back... Oh, that's the kettle boiling. I don't know if you guys can hear that in the background. Probably not. It's not...
okay.
But if you do, that's
I'm
what
just
it is.
making a cup of tea.
Anyway, so I told you he was on vacation. Anyway, we had some pretty good discussions so far tonight, and hope you'll go back if you're listening to the podcast and listen to some of those things. But Nick loves sea shanties.
He does.
He just loves this music. So we thought we wanted to, we've been talking all night about some serious issues and that. But, we just thought we'd be a little bit lighter in the final part of this week's show and talk about sea shanties and some of the techniques in that. Nick was just pointing out to me that he was playing, during the break, he was playing one for me, how, it sounds like a whole group of people getting together and playing, singing and all this stuff. But, it's only one person, actually.
In that particular instance,
They recorded individual tracks and then they've mixed them together, which, used to be the kind of thing that if you were the Beatles or something, you'd have to spend tens of thousands of dollars hiring a studio to do all that stuff. But now you can do it on your computer all by yourself.
On your cell phone.
Or you could do it on your, I guess you could do it on your cell phone.
Yeah, through TikTok. Where this comes from is I have been a fan of sea shanties since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. My mother taught me a whole bunch when we were still on the farm back home in southern Ontario. She taught us things like Old Bellina and the Blue Nose song, and she had a real love for this kind of music. I don't know where it came from, but she just loved it and taught us to. We'd sing it while we're in the fields or doing dishes. And I carried that tradition on in our own family. So I can honestly say I've been a fan of this kind of music long before this kind of music was popular, and I will be a fan of it long after it's gone. Because this, I have no doubt, is a fad. It's not like a year from now, the spotlight on it will have moved on. But there's something about the timing, about what's going on. And so you have an understanding. If you're in the chat room, I posted 2 links. One is of the sea shanty that got it all started, which is called the Wellerman. It's a New Zealand sailing sea shanty for whalers. And they talk about life at sea and harpooning a right whale and all that stuff. And it's got such an earthy rhythm to it, and it's so easy to sing and participate with that it's like, you know what the term an earworm is? It gets in your head and it just keeps going around and around and around. This is the same way. And everybody has been jumping on board. Now, there's a young man by the name of Nathan from, I forget his last name, Nathan Daniels, I think, who is as they call him in Scotland, a postman, delivering mail in Scotland, who sat down one day during the COVID crisis, popped up TikTok, and recorded this particular song. Now, with TikTok, as I understand it, you can then put that video out, and people can take it and add their part to it. And then somebody else can come along and grab it. So now there's 2 parts. So somebody will be singing harmony or melody, somebody else singing harmony. Then someone will come along and add another layer of harmony. Someone will come along and add bass. And before long, there could be 1,000 people all involved in doing this song. And it's been almost like a revolution. And I think part of the reason for this is because we have been in a real tumultuous dark cloud kind of time. And people need something to buoy their spirits. And the timing of this is such that people just said, not only is that fun to listen to, it really is. Like, one of my greatest memories of being in the Navy is going down to a place called the Lower Beverage Room in Halifax, listening to a local band do Drunken Sailor with 200 slightly less than sober sailors singing along, swinging their beer steins, slopping beer all over each other, and having an absolute ball. So this gives me that kind of a feeling. People can participate no matter what their skill level, because nobody cares. Once you have 1,000 voices, or even four or five or six voices, it's very hard to pick out any one particular voice. So who cares what you sound like? They just jump in and they add their voice to this growing community, and it gives people a sense of community. It gives people a sense of fun. Remember about 2 years ago, there was this flash crowd draw craze where people would go to a ball and one person would just stand up and start singing the Hallelujah chorus, and there was a choir spread amongst the crowd. And before long, you had this whole choir standing there and everybody else sitting around with their eyes wide open, listening to this impromptu choral recital. That was a big thing a couple of years ago. Now we have sea shanties that are filling the same role, but I think it's because of the isolation that people have felt, and this is one of the ways that people have begun to reconnect with each other, given the circumstances. It doesn't replace, sitting around a campfire or things like that, but it's the best we can do given the circumstances. Because to get this experience before, you had to put out money and go to a concert. Like my family, I haven't seen them, but everybody else in my family has. They went and saw a Great Big Sea. I think it was in London or Guelph or someplace. And there was like 15,000 people there. Alan Doyle walked out on stage, and for 2 hours, my family sat in the second bowl and screamed along with the songs until they couldn't talk. They had a blast, absolute riot. And this kind of music has a very, very unique character, and it speaks about life's challenges and difficulties in ways words can't. And I'm probably being way too wordy for this, but I really think that's what's behind this sudden rise in a very old form of music. This goes back centuries. They don't really know where the sea shanty first got started, but I can tell you the first time somebody put a sail on a log and had to blow into it to get it to go across the lake, well, guess what? They figured out that doing it with a rhythm, which was easy to keep with music, was the best way to get it done. So it goes back to the very earliest days of sail. Or traveling across the water in some kind of vessel.
Right, like a slave ship with the oars.
You know what? Probably, yes, to keep the rhythm. I mean, they had a drum, but I have no doubt the slaves would sing as they rowed to stay in time and to make the work lighter. The thing about a shanty, whether it's a pump shanty, which is where you're down in the bottom of the ship and you're pumping the water out that accumulates in the hull of a ship during a voyage. There's one called Lever Johnny Lever that's one of those songs. It has a certain rhythm to it. Another one, like the Drunken Sailor, is a capstan song because you need a smooth, steady rhythm. And then there's one, there's all kinds of different ones. One's for hoisting the sail, depending on what the job was, that allowed them to work and get the job done as quickly and efficiently as possible and maintain crew morale. So there was a lot to it. And it never really went away. It just kind of was like a submarine. It was there, but just below the surface. And to see it come back I've just delighted, absolutely delighted to see this form of music resurface again.
And, just to circle back to the technology again, for the kind of mixing that's involved in something like this, it's amazing. Just in the last 2 or 3 years, what people are capable of doing now with their computers, and as you say, with their cell phones. You can do, as a single person, you could create a whole choir, and not through special effects, but simply by recording a track of music, and then recording it again, and then recording again, and then laying the 3 tracks together with a simple, probably free editing program, and all of a sudden, and you can harmonize, etc., And, I came across some of this type of music. Actually, it was an Israeli group that was doing this. They were doing some liturgical music. But what they were doing was they were going across this. The guy that was producing this was going across the country, and he was having famous singers and artists sing this song the way they would do it if they were playing an instrument or if they were singing or whatever. And then what he would do is he'd mix those each portion together, and it's quite clever. I'll show you after
there was
an example
one
of it.
Similar to that about a bar mitzvah where there was a dozen guys sitting around. I think I played it for you once.
Yeah, I recall.
And it was just mind blowing how good these guys were.
But that was an actual group.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they were at a bar mitzvah, sitting at a table. Right. But what they could do with just a little mixer and a few microphones was amazing.
Well, Nick, look what we're doing.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I'm a big fan of the group Queen. I grew up with Queen. They were in the 1970s. They were, well, they still are in my mind, the very best rock band ever to set foot on the stage. And you can fight me for it, as my daughter would say. When they recorded Bohemian Rhapsody, they used 100,000 feet of tape to put that piece together. Who knows how long they were in the studio. But I remember when you watched the movie about the life of Freddie Mercury, when they were going over the recording, John Deacon is the really high voice in that. And he must have recorded that 15, 20, 30 times to hit that note. And he said, I can't go any higher without tightening my underwear. Just unbelievable. And to look at what you can do today, because that took a $100,000 studio, but today you can go right here in Ottawa and for $60, $150, let's say under $1,000, an artist can walk into a studio, sit down behind a microphone, have a sound engineer mix the music, provide all the hardware, the programming and everything, and hand them a thumb drive with their whole album on it.
Nick, I was telling somebody the other day that you used to work at CFRA, which is used to be the flagship radio station here in Ottawa. I don't know if you could say that anymore, but certainly when you were there, it was, and not just because of you, but it was, but you were a major part of it. When they built the broadcast center in the Byward Market area, I mean, you're talking tens of millions of dollars worth of bricks and mortar and equipment. And this person I was talking to the other day, I was saying, if you look at CFRA, the radio side of things today, okay, and you look at our operation here at Think Radio, we're just as good as they are.
Yeah, from a sound quality point of view and from a technical point of view, there's not much difference between us.
Yeah.
Like if we were, the only difference is we can't see George Street. And who cares? We're in an office with no windows to the outside, which probably isn't a bad thing.
Well, we could easily, in the building we're in, we could easily, move from one office to another and one suite to another and set up the studio in there. And who knows, maybe the acoustics would be even better. But it's just amazing what people can do. And then, what we do in this studio is not just radio, but we also do some video production here. And, we were having some meetings with some people this afternoon doing some teleprompter taping and that. My goodness gracious, I mean, when you think about what 10 years ago, what a person had to go through, and then now, just, with your phone, with your cell phone,